Okay, fine. So we'll start. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vidyacharana Sampanno Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisadamma Sarati Satta Deva Manusanang Buddho Bhagavati Namo Tassa Samma Sambuddhassa Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Vapanayiko Pachattang Veditabbo Vinnuhiti Namo Tassa Niyanika Sadammasa Supatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango Ujupatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango Nyayapatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango Sami Chipatipanno Bhagavato Savakasango Yadidang Jattari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Puggala Esa Bhagavato Savakasango Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakkineyo Anjalikaraniyo Anuttarang Punyaketang Lokasati Namo Tassa Atta Ariya Puggala Maha Sangasa. So today's Dhamma talk is to know about this model man concept, or this ideal man, because in all religions, more or less, they highlight some qualities and they motivate the religious leaders or the founders of the religions. They motivate people to emulate those qualities and then grow as an individual. That kind of emulation is the idea of all the religions, for that matter. All the good people, of course, like to make the people good, they need some role models, some example. Generally, people, they look up for some role model. They look up for some role qualities. And that's what, of course, many religious leaders and founders of religions, founders of sects, all leaders, all reformers, they always highlight the qualities of the true happiness, the true success, the right harmony in the society. To achieve all those things, then there should be something called a model man or a role model in the society. And of course, many of the reformers, leaders, religious leaders, social leaders, they always try to emulate those qualities that they teach, that they preach. They try to imbibe those qualities by themselves first, because that's what works in the society. Simply preaching, it will not help many times. One has to imbibe those qualities and to show the world that their life is their message. The way they have lived their life, the way they have imbibed those great qualities that they are teaching, and that should inspire the people. That's what is the effort of many people, of course, many leaderly people, whether they are religious leaders or social leaders or political leaders. That's what they teach and that's what they practice generally. So very renowned such practitioners who have one very profound impact on the people, not only during those times when they were there, it's even after their death. It has left a strong impact and imprints of their life, their lifestyle, the way they have practiced some of those things that they have taught, that they have preached. So that kind of two great role models that world is very much say inspired, or Krishna and Buddha. mm, That kind of presenting themselves as embodiment of some great qualities. That's what is the concept of model man, or the role model, or an ideal man. Almost all in the Hindu religion, all great say teachers or preachers or the role models, they are like universal men generally. Krishna consciousness is always say it's like universal consciousness. The Rama or Krishna, they stand for that universal consciousness, universal love. They sacrifice their happiness for the sake of their family or the people around them. And when it's a question of a bigger cause, like say for the happiness of the country, for the happiness of the nation, for the happiness of the kingdom, they sacrifice themselves, and also they ask their family members, their people surrounding them, to sacrifice for that higher cause, the greater cause, that is the cause of the country, the cause of the kingdom, the cause of the nation, the benefit for many people, more people. They ask or they motivate not only their own sacrifice, the sacrifice of the people surrounding them also. And when it is a question of universal concern, then they ask the entire nation to sacrifice for the cause of the entire mankind. That way, all these the great role models like Krishna or Rama, they stood for what is called this universal love or universal consciousness, so that there will be higher harmony, higher peace, or higher cooperation, higher happiness. Above all, the higher happiness can be established. The meanness from the minds has to be removed. That is the sole objective of all reformers. For that matter, that is the very objective of human life. As many times I used to say, Mana Ushati iti Manusha. Mana Ushyati iti Manusha. If it is in Sanskrit, let us say. That means one should develop the mind. What is the meaning of developing the mind? Like coming out of the mean, the defilements of the mind, the mean qualities, the mean attachments of the mind to me, my senses, or my power, my ambitions, my greatness. All this meanness has to be removed from the mind, and it should, like say, it should derive that happiness in that very act of letting go, in very act of say freedom from this meanness, freedom from these defilements, freedom from these attachments of the mind. Very foolishly, the human mind gets attached to all these uh, silly things, the sensual pleasures or the ego pleasures or that greatness for me, myself, that very me, myself, that I-ness, minus itself is ignorance, and that very arrogance is ignorance, that very ego itself is ignorance. That's what is the teaching of almost all teachers, not only Indian religions, even the Western, even the non-Indian religions also. So, more or less, the intention is to remove this meanness from the human minds, the selfishness from the human minds, and to make them more broad-minded. That broad-mindedness, that non-selfishness is happiness. So one has to come out of this kind of boundaries, small boundaries that people build up around themselves and struggle, suffer, like cocoons they build for themselves, and they struggle, suffer inside. So to make the people to come out of that kind of bondage, that kind of say very selfish, mean life, always this aspect of service, sacrifice, mm, that selflessness, that is very much promoted, and higher that sacrifice with greater wisdom, with greater say um, bigger view, like universal welfare. So such kind of role models, or they become the universal leaders or universal say role models, or like Jesus Christ, like uh, maybe even Muhammad Paigambar also, like all great religious leaders like Krishna, Rama. They're all like they stand for this universal love. Hmm. And of course, Buddha also has some definitions, some versions about a model man. But how he is little bit different, that we will see little later. And there are, of course, many similarities also, a few similarities also of Buddha's concept of model man with these universal teachers like Krishna, Rama, and then Jesus, Paigambar. But now we can't spend much time on all these religious leaders. We'll just take up a few teachings of Krishna about this model man, how a model man should be, and then see how Buddha's model man has some similarities. And again, we will see how a Buddha's model man has some differences also, from this concept of model man or ideal man that Krishna teaches. How a few qualities or a few concepts or a few ideas are different from the model man concept of Buddha, or Buddha's model man concept from Krishna. That also we will see. Why all this exercise? Not to compare and not to show one is superior, the other one is inferior. No, not that silly or stupid thing. That is not the intention here. The intention is to come to this, our final objective of our organization, that mind centeredness, especially the relevance, its relevance today, the modern world, to reinforce that right view. That is the idea. It's all. In different times, in different ages, the different role models, the concept of role models, the concept of model men that worked and that works even today to some extent. But based on the relevance, how we should imbibe a few things, even from the role model concepts of other spiritual leaders, and also this role model concept of Buddha. And then, according to one's own, say, individual capabilities, individual abilities, individual discrete knowledge, which is suitable for oneself, that he can imbibe and that he can practice. That is the idea. Okay, it is like to present different ideas so that the people with different temperaments, they can choose whatever they wish to, and also again to motivate them for some higher aspiration, higher view, superior right view. Again, just to give some push, give some motivation to rise little higher. That is one more reason to talk about or to discuss about these concepts of model men, the role models, model men, because all this growth in uh, this becoming a model man, or this concept of role model, is to get higher happiness. That's it. Sometimes, like even like they say in the Indian Hindu mythology, like even Vishnu, after his Varaha avatara, like after when he was a pig, he took the role of a pig, and he took an avatar of. So then he wanted to save the earth, and then he became unmindful of who he is actually. He started enjoying the very life of uh, that hog, that pig. Mm. And then Shiva has to come and he has to pierce him with his Trishula. And then he came to his senses. I'm not pig, I'm Vishnu. So this is enough. This role of a pig is enough. Now let me go back to my Vishnu's actual Loka, Vishnu Loka, and let me do my role as the Vishnu. So this role of pig is over. That's why the Shiva has to help him, to make him to come to his senses. So in that way, all of us, maybe we may be stuck with our own views, with our own encapsulation in this body, in our views, in our environment, in our situations. So then if we pierce these individuals with wrong views, with wrong kinds of enjoying the wrong happinesses or the inferior happiness itself as the higher happiness, that is the happiness. Many of us might have stuck in that pool of mud, thinking that this is the higher happiness. Then we require this piercing from the right view, so that it will help us to think or motivate or inspire us to correctly understand and grasp right view and start practicing right view, absorbing it through right view techniques, through right view meditations, through right view mindfulness, through right view actions, right view speech. All these right speech, right actions, all these things that Buddha talks about in the Noble Eightfold Path, they are the right view, steps only. Right speech is nothing but right view speech, the speech with the right view. Right action is nothing but the actions with right view. The right livelihood is nothing but the livelihood, the professions with right view. That way, again, to reinforce or to re-establish in right view with more confidence, and this kind of understanding will help some extent, definitely. So that is the objective, that is the idea behind, what is the intention behind the taking up this discussion on this concepts of role model or model man or ideal man. So as I was telling you, now coming to this concept of model man or ideal man according to Krishna, what Krishna talks about in Gita, or maybe in other scriptures like Bhagavad Purana. So in a few places, Krishna has to give some idea about this model man or this role model, because of course deep inside many people will have that concept, will have that inclination towards I should lead a best life, I should lead like model life, good for me, good for others. That is very much there in almost all, even among the atheists also. Even among the atheists or the materialists also, many of them I have seen very good atheists or materialists. They want to help the world, help themselves, even in this materialism, even to comfort the body. With that good for me, good for others aspiration only, even these atheists or the materialists, they think about all that good for me, good for others aspiration is very much there among I can't say vast majority, or at least some good majority of the people. It is very much there in the world. The people with some goodness, they always they think of good for themselves and good for others. With some wisdom, some intelligence, people with some intelligence, some wisdom, some goodness, they definitely they work on this. They think about how to achieve this good for me, good for others. Then such people definitely will look for what is this model man, according to different masters, and how I can imbibe some of these qualities. That way, definitely people look for it. So here, what Krishna is talking about and inspiring his audience. Of course, most of the times it's Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita, it is Arjuna. One of the wisest persons during that time, Arjuna. So he gave so many ways of becoming a model man, cultivating these abilities to become good for oneself, good for others, to be happy by oneself, happy for others. So that Krishna used to inspire. Krishna used to give a lot of anecdotes, a lot of examples, a lot of similes, a lot of wisdom. He used to pour in But still, because of confusion, because of conflicts in the mind, huh, even even with a person like Arjuna, who is supposed to be one of the wisest persons during that time, he had also confusion, conflict, fear, worry. All these things should go out of the mind. Even if you're indulging in some violent activity like war, killing his own relatives, if you are really so compassionate about this, your relatives or your teachers, then you should not have created this situation of waging war with them. You would have avoided from your birth itself, or from maybe from your previous lives itself, you would have avoided. But once you have come to this stage of waging war with them, now falling into this confusion is absolute foolishness. That's why the clarity is one of the core focuses, one of the important thing that Krishna highlights. A mind with clarity is that is actually the mind of a model man. The clarity and equanimity. So these are the two things Krishna highlights at the time of the battle, that war, that Kurukshetra war. And of course, during other times also, Krishna used to talk about Stita Pragnata, the equanimity, the equilibrium of the mind. One has to go through ups and downs in the life, whether he is a king or whether he is a beggar, whether he is a man or a woman, whether he is poor or rich, whether he is intelligent or ignorant. Everybody should go through these ups and downs, these vicissitudes in the life, the dichotomies of the life. One has to go through the ups and downs. But in all these ups and downs, vicissitudes, maintaining the stita pragnata, that equanimity, with clarity in mind, is what is actually the yogatva, the path of yoga. So that's why one should become a yogi. A yogi is a model man in Hindu tradition, in Hindu religion. And of course, that yoga, that concept of yoga has, that yogi and yoga, that the word and the concept has entered into a lot of Buddhist sects also here in Tibet and everywhere. Of course, even in Theravada Buddhist sects also, they talk about yogi, and for a meditator, for a practitioner. In Tibetan Buddhism, they talk so much about, they use this word so much, this yogi word. And of course, even in Theravada meditation centers also, they use this word yogi. But here, according to Krishna, a yogi is the one who is working for this stita pragnata, this equanimity of the mind. And to achieve that equanimity, it is not so easy. One should have absolute clarity in the mind. And to achieve that clarity in the mind, of course, one should learn this art and science of purifying the mind. For that, of course, Buddha has given the 4 approaches based on the 4 kinds of temperament, like 4 yogas that generally people talk about. Of course, Krishna, he gave all these 4 approaches, 4 kinds of yoga in Gita itself. And of course, that is revived, that is developed very much by other masters like Patanjali. What Krishna talks about these 4 kinds of 4 approaches of yoga, like Gnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raja Yoga. So, what is this Bhakti? Like say Bhakti, again, it comes like say having complete faith in a person who has achieved mastery in these yogas. That's why Buddha says, I'm sorry, again and again I'm using Buddha. It's like, say, now we are discussing about Krishna's ideology, Krishna's concept of model man. So, according to Krishna, so this bhakti means like bhakti in this concept of Stita Pragnata, bhakti in this concept of universal man. And bhakti in the person like he himself, Krishna himself, has achieved absolute mastery in this Stita Pragnata, completely surrendering to him. That is also bhakti. Once you surrender, the person who is like say completely imbued with those model qualities, has perfected those model qualities. And if you have bhakti, devotion in such person, then you will not lose, you will not become a loser. That's why this bhakti is also very much encouraged uh, in, of course, many religions. And completely having the faith in the master, especially in the founders like Krishna or Jesus or Rama or Allah, Paigambar, where it may be. So the bhakti in the person who has completely mastered what he's teaching, who has mastered his mind, who has achieved that Stita Pragnata. So that kind of complete faith, devotion, and once with that love and devotion, one who starts connecting to that person's mind and his ideals, his qualities, then slowly, slowly he will also start getting those ideals and qualities, and he will also start reaching that perfection. So that is one approach, which is say suitable for vast majority of the people, for many many people, and even for the Gnanis also, the so-called wise people, Gnanis also bhakti will help. That's what Buddha says, Krishna says. So Arti, Artharti, Jignasu, and Gnani. I like these four kinds of people who are striving to achieve bhakti in me. Like Arti means like who is like very badly require my support, and because of that he's depending on me. Maybe even for the worldly things also. Artharti means like who is in a position to give something to me and in return to get my protection and my advice or my guidance or my blessings from me, and that kind of Artharti also. And Jignasu, one who is a very, very genuine seeker like Arjuna himself. Though he may not be a Gnani, but he is genuinely seeking knowledge from me. He is a Jignasu. And a Gnani, though somebody might have achieved a lot of Gnana, but still they can have devotion in me, and again they can perfect themselves, and with that very devotion then they can help the people also with their Gnana and also with their bhakti in me. So in that way, these four kinds of people, again, Krishna, he projects them as the role models. And these four kinds of yogis also, he projects them as role models. A Gnana yogi, a bhakti yogi, a Raja yogi, a karma yogi. So then who is karma yogi, like who is into completely into this actions, the worldly things. As a householder, one has to do 1 million things to take care of himself, to take care of the people, or even the animals, or even the relatives, the society, the kings. Many things are dependent on householder, and he has to work for all those people, and all his necessities, his body, and he has to be completely involved in that multi-faceted actions. So, in the midst of those actions, completely involving in the action, with again some Dana yoga is required there also. Just like in bhakti, some Dana is required. In karma yoga also, some bit of Dana is required, but based on his abilities, his physical abilities, his intellectual abilities to perform action. Still, an idea about how to calm down the mind, how to stay in an equilibrium state. So, with that background, with that support, if a person indulges in different kinds of actions in the world, then he is a karma yogi. And of course, karma yogi is not just completely doing some actions, this and that. No, karma yoga involves again two things. One is like it should be like like say yoga karmasu kaushalam. So skillfully one should do the karmas. And the second thing is it should be like say expectation-less actions, completely indulging in the actions 100%, not bothering much about the results. So these are the two aspects that Karma Yoga requires to establish that equanimity in the mind, and at the same time completely in the dynamic state, completely like say active, enthusiastic. So that selflessness, expectationless, that attitude while functioning, while performing any actions, and also the second, the skillfulness. Skillfulness involves goodness. Skillfulness involves good for me, good for others. Skillfulness is smartness in action. Skillfulness is goodness in action. Goodness means good for me, good for others. In that way, Karma Yoga is not just doing any damn thing and say that I am into karma, I am into karma. No, there one should like in the in our steps of success, Iddhipada. One should completely involve in it. Should be enthusiastically involved in it. We should have firm will in what he is doing, and he should take the responsibility for what he is doing. All these things make him to completely involve, at the same time completely detached from the results of the action also. That kind of ability of the mind to completely involve in the action, at the same time to say step away from the results of the action, not being bothered about the results of the action, because automatically it comes with that knowledge. When the action is skillful, when the action is good, when the action is full of smartness, kushalata, skillfulness, and also when the action is full of expectationless, then one will get the best results. That is very much there. That law is very much there in this universe, this existence, law of cause and effect. So based on that, if a person involves in actions, then it is called Karma Yoga. A Karma Yogi is also a model man. He is a model man for vast majority of the people again, because the world has to be involved in a lot of action. The world can't become still, then one can't fulfill their even the daily requirements, even the basic requirements, they can't fulfill. If you are completely involved in bhakti and completely surrendering to, say, let us say, Krishna himself, and doing some bhajans or dances, then your basic requirements also will not be taken care of. Only a few people can do that. So, vast majority of the people, they should involve in this Karma Yoga. Okay, so in that way, Krishna has emphasized a Karma Yogi also as a model man. Of course, with these qualities of Sthita Pragnata, these qualities of not getting bothered by the results, not being worried by or affected by what will happen to the results. That will also help in establishing in that equilibrium of the mind, equanimity of the mind. And then, of course, Raja Yoga, they're step by step through the 8 steps in Raja Yoga. Generally, they speak about Patanjali's Raja Yoga. Krishna also talks about how to discipline the body, discipline your, your interaction with the people around you, your bodily actions, disciplining, and then breathing techniques like pranayama, and then of course meditations to calm down the mind. And finally, they say yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Like finally, a yogi, whoever, whatever with the type of yoga that you are practicing, whether it is bhakti yoga, or raja yoga, or karma yoga, or gnana yoga, finally it is like chitta vritti nirodha. That is the goal of all yogis. What is chitta vritti nirodha? Like all these mind modifications, mind whirlings, mind fluctuations, the mind transactions, the mind businesses, they are the chitta vrittis. Like mind is completely, it's wobbling always, it is whirling always in different ways. like in an uncontrolled way. Sometimes it wants this, sometimes it wants that, sometimes it hates someone, sometimes it loves someone, sometimes it grudges, sometimes it appreciates. That way, mind is like a restless monkey, and always it wobbles. It's many times it dominates a man and makes him a buffoon. The mind makes a person absolutely foolish also, and if it is properly trained, it makes a person a great man. And many yogis, even today, they talk about if the mind controls the man, then he is a bogi or a person who is carried away in this worldly life, the sensual life. If the mind controls the man, hmm. Alternately or oppositely, if the mind, if the man controls the mind, it's not the mind controlling the man; it is the man controlling the mind. That means if you develop the abilities like a yogi, start working on the mind and purifying the mind and stop this chitta vrittis and overpower it with your own will, with your own intelligence, with your own other abilities of the mind. They're already very much there in your own mind, of course. Your wise mind dominates your foolish mind. The friends of your mind dominate the enemies of your mind. That's what here is the meaning, the man dominating the mind, the man controlling the mind. Then he becomes a yogi. So in that way, the will, the intelligence, the abilities of controlling this chitta vritti, the mind whirlings, the mind fluctuations, then he is a true yogi. And that's what is the goal. That's what is the end result of all this yoga practice. And that is what one should aspire for. That is the aspiration of a model man. That is the aspiration of all yogis. In that way, all yogis are the model men, according to Krishna. So here the commonality that we can see with the Buddha is like this is very much there. Buddha always talk about Manopupangamada. You have to control the mind. Mind is the root of every damn thing, either for your failure or for your success, or for your downfall, or for your say growth or progress. Either for your say complete ruining or for your liberation, either for your complete bondage, slavery, or for your complete liberation. Mind is the key, mind is the mula. So that mind-centeredness is, of course, it's very much highlighted. And it is the only thing that is highlighted by maybe because of the inferior abilities of the people during the life of Krishna or many other masters. They can't completely emphasize. So in your mind only, friends are also there, enemies are also there. The nice things are also there in your own mind, and the bad things are also there in your own mind. Try to explore the nice things, understand the bad things in your mind. Try to fix the enemies of your mind with your friends who are very much there in your mind. So that approach they could try to explain. Even in Gita, there is a lot of efforts by Krishna we can see to convince Arjuna. At the last moment, now you're scared of fighting. All these days, you're grown as a Kshatriya, you're born as a Kshatriya, and you have created all the causes to come to this stage of waging a war. And now at this moment, when it is a do or die moment, you are stepping back and you are falling into this kind of confusion and conflict in the mind, and in this kind of say restlessness in the mind. This is absolute ignorance, it's absolute foolishness. If you wanted to become absolutely a non-violent person, then you would not have created all these things. which have brought you to this stage. So in that way, that very confusion is very much say hit by Krishna, but still even that confusion he could not remove. Then he has to say, then he has to bring in the Bhakti Yoga aspect or other aspects of completely dominating his mind. I am the God, just listen to me and just follow my instructions. When he could not understand that he is into this kind of confusion, now let you come out of it and we should now enter into this stage of absolute clarity. That could not happen the individual mind. Then the great leaders, religious leaders like Krishna, they had to talk about, they have to switch over to some kind of empathetic views, which are, of course, which were not appreciated by the Buddha, because that empathetic views maybe temporarily it may work, and of course it worked in that situation in during the time of that great war, Kurukshetra. So there, of course, with some force, Krishna had to emphasize that, and that authoritativeness he has to bring in by stimulating that bhakti, that devotion, as a last resort. But his effort is completely on mind-centeredness, on that we could see all his efforts. But when the world is not ready, when the listeners are not ready, then he has to say, just believe me, just work for me, just follow my instructions to get the things done. That's what even in other religions also people do, but it takes a lot of side effects, lot of it will lead to a lot of other wrong views multiplying the minds, and that risk is very much there, of course. Like even say this jihad and all, they have some good intentions maybe when to start with, but it led to a lot of wrong intentions, wrong aspirations. They started defining or say highlighting the importance of waging war for some wrong reasons also, not just for the purification of the mind. So though when we go through all the teachings of Buddha like this, yoga karmasu kaushalam, guru karmani, like say, all this in many of the definitions of yoga chitta vritti nirodha, the emphasis is on the mind to understand your own mind. But when the people won't understand those concepts of mind-centeredness, then they had to switch over to other views and other compulsions that they had to enforce. So in that way, that mind-centeredness is very much there when you see this very statement, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. But Buddha, as he prepared himself to bring in this mind-centeredness to its peak, not only from one or two lives, from time immemorial, from millions and millions of his lives, worked on his mind, prepared his mind, purified his mind, developed his mind, completely relied on his own mind, that mind-centeredness. When he was a bodhisattva, he was ready to die even for the sake of some creatures, some small petty animals. Not just for the sake of showing the power of sacrifice, power of selflessness, as Krishna and Rama are all the universal teachers. They talk about the power of selflessness, so to achieve happiness, to achieve peace for oneself and also the people around them. And as I was telling you, sacrificing one's own happiness for the sake of people around, and sacrificing the happiness of oneself and the people around for the sake of the nation or the kingdom, and sacrificing the happiness of the nation or the kingdom for the sake of the entire humanity. So that approach, of course, very skillfully, they could practice, they could show that is the way to live. whether it is Rama or Krishna or any great religious leaders. But here, the Buddha's experiments as Bodhisattva, as Buddha in his last life also, it is definitely, it will fit into this kind of universal love, that Maitri, Metta, universal loving kindness, universal compassion, universal appreciation without any jealousy, without any enviousness, universal equanimity. Equanimity, of course, it is also there, of course, as I was telling in Krishna's philosophy of Sthita Pragnata also. But in addition to this, so Buddha's emphasis is on to understand other faculties of mind, not just these four wholesome feelings, and to work for them and to achieve this hierarchical selflessness, this universal selflessness, universal love. Not only these things, it is also to work on other faculties of the mind, like mindfulness, awareness, consciousness, purifying the mind. That's what is Buddhatva is like, absolutely working with all intelligence, with all penetration into the mind, knowing the friends and enemies of the mind, fixing the enemies of the mind by the friends of the mind. It's a very vast knowledge. It requires millions and millions of lives to understand the mind, even for the wisest person like the Bodhisattva and the Buddha. And that's what he highlights for other people also. As a Bodhisattva, he could not do that mind-centered approach to convince people. But that at that time, he was fulfilling his own mental perfections, the third formula. And in that process, he was definitely helping millions and millions of people around. And to some extent, those who are very wise, they could slowly tune to his aspirations of mind purification. But when he was the perfect Buddha, the supremely enlightened Buddha, during his last life, he completely emphasized on the mind purification. And his very first statement about the Four Noble Truths, the very first noble truth, to understand dukkha in this existence, and whatever you do in this existence, as a bhakta or an action, or as a person who is completely into action, or as a gnani, or even as a Rajyogi Dhyani. So your emphasis should be only on liberation, on yourself, because carrying the very body itself is a burden. So in that way, the model man, according to Buddha, is the one who is completely having the focus of liberating the mind and to emancipate from this worldly existence, stopping these repeated births and deaths. And the second aspect of the role model or the model man of Buddha is to completely focus on the mind only. As a byproduct, you may get benefits for the body, benefits for the society. You may get, as in the case of Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, they completely focused on the mind. They completely started purifying the mind. And as a byproduct, they used to get a lot of worldly achievements, bodily pleasures also, In most of his previous lives, he was like, say, he was a great king. He was a Chakravarti Maharaja, He was a Chakravarti. He was a ruling world, who is having the influence on the entire world. Chakravarti means like the entire world who can have an influence, that kind of a monarch, that kind of a ruler. So automatically, that is like a byproduct. You will get it when you are completely focused on mind purification or mind liberation. If that is your aspiration, though you may not become completely emancipated in this life, but as a result of your efforts to purify your mind, so in the next life you will definitely take birth as a powerful man, because when the mind becomes powerful with this pure actions, with your effort to purify the mind, then automatically the body also follows the mind and it also becomes powerful. That means He will take birth as a powerful man. That is the message. That is the aspect of a model man of Buddha. So, at any cost, for whatever may be the reason, for the universal welfare, in your own way you may define universal welfare. In your own way, you may define. You may stick on to say your views of you may have to kill or you may have to not to kill. So whatever views you have for the sake of other people, but purifying my mind, thereby inspiring the other people to work on their minds, and keeping that aspiration of mind purification, mind liberation, through, of course, this equanimity of the mind, through equilibrium in the mind, not getting carried away by these ups and downs of the world. That is very much there. All these aspects that we have seen in Krishna's concept of role model or model man, it's very much there. But universal concern, selflessness, universal consciousness. But a lot of wrong views may step into that kind of only confining to this universal consciousness or universal love or universal welfare. So what are the wrong views that may step in? Like forgetting about this mind centered and deciding in your own way, this set of actions are good for these people, and this is good for these people, and it is good for the whole world. In that way, some wrong presumptions, wrong the conclusions one may draw if this universal consciousness or this universal oneness or this universal God, this kind of concepts come. Then ignoring the mind purification, that is the problem, that is the first problem, that is very much rejected by Buddha. The first and foremost goal is mind purification. If you are correctly into this process of mind purification, working on your own mind, then everything will fall in place. Automatically, a harmony can be established around yourself, among the people who are around you, among the nations also. And he says when there is an arhant, automatically the entire community or the entire province will have a lot of harmony, lot of cooperation, lot of peace. That very one powerful purified mind with absolute right view of mind centeredness, that one mind itself is sufficient enough, good enough to create harmony among the people around. That is the power of the mind. That is the power of the purity of the mind. That is the reason why Buddha's emphasis is always on mind centered, on working on the mind and mind centered. Then automatically this universal welfare with regard to body, with regard to economy, with regard to wealth, with regard to health or physical health, it will fall in place. I think many of you now in this 21st century, people can easily understand this, can easily tune into this. Because of that confidence only, I thought of presenting this talk. In the name of universal welfare, universal consciousness, universal oneness, there are a lot of risks, there's higher probability to fall into these wrong views like universal oneness, then automatically, completely, wrongly devoting oneself, wrongly surrendering to that kind of wrong views will make you maybe a violent person, absolutely a foolish person, absolutely an arrogant person also. Like in the case of these terrorists, any kind of terrorism, whether it is, it's most of the terroristic things, activities which carry the extreme views are rooted in these eternalistic views only. Like say, this is our universal oneness, and this represents universal oneness. Whatever he sees he says and he sees is correct, I simply listen to him and I may kill others or I may destroy something. I may completely, and it's all good for everyone. It is all good for the whole world. In that way, only many terrorists also they work. And even the other group, like the extremists, like your next slides and your this left, extreme left view violent people, they also think that physical comforts, equality in the physical comforts, if that is not there, then we destroy the people who are having, though they may look they're happy, but they may not be happy in several ways. They may be having wealth. We destroy them, we get the wealth from them, and we give it to poor people. That is the service to God. In that way, in that extreme view may come when they are like materialistic, or when they are completely body centered, when they are having the body centered views. In that way, this eternalistic views of this universal or permanent consciousness or permanent God, or some religions, they represent God, their teachers represent God, or they themselves claim as God, then automatically that authoritativeness, the blind authoritativeness in the talk about, that blind followership also will follow. And then they start completely losing their senses, their minds, and they start doing all extreme activities, harming themselves, harming others, whether in the eternalistic, soul-centered, God-centered, or the modern yogis, modern philosophers, they talk about universal oneness, universal consciousness, where that permanence aspect, when they talk about, and then they start representing this permanent aspect, then they harm themselves, they harm their followers, and in turn, they and their followers, they create a lot of problem in the world also, like these the so-called extremists they are doing. In the name of religion, in the name of God, in the name of say in the name of good for everyone, in the name of universal good, in the name of universal love, all this nonsense is going on. On the same way, even these extreme leftist views also, like these materialistic views, in the name of equality, in the name of welfare of all, materialistic welfare, they're not deriving the absolute happiness from the body and the senses. And not only they are not deriving, but they are working for it. They spoil other people also with this kind of wrong views. So to come out of these extreme views and keeping the best of this materialistic views and the paternalistic views, so this mind-centered view of Buddha, and those who are working on it, either as, like say, either as householders or as monks, or as brahmanas, or as bhikkhus. There are two vaggas in Dhammapala, bhikkhu vagga and brahmana vagga. Generally, during those days, they were considered as the role models. The bhikkhus were also considered as role models. The brahmanas, the brahmanas, Buddha has a different definition of a brahmana. That is very much explained here in this brahmana vagga and bhikkhu vagga. And he gives the qualities of the role models. Definitely, they should have a lot of compassion, universal love. That is very much there. That is very much highlighted in the role model, the qualities of the role models by Krishna. So, in addition to that, they should have a bhikkhu, a mendicant, should experience the transcendental joy. He should say, like say, working on the mind, that mind-centeredness, deriving the happiness from within. When there is sacrifice, when there is giving up, there is definitely happiness is there. That's what is the aspiration of the role models or model men of all other religions, all other views. That's what is the inspiration that you will derive from the teachings of Krishna or any other religious leader who are having the eternalistic views. But in addition to that, one should derive the joy from within in this in this meditativeness also, in this mindfulness also, this right view meditativeness, mindfulness, meditations also. Then he's motivating other people to work on mind, develop this meditativeness, practice meditation. In that way, meditativeness, meditation based on mind-centeredness is also an integral part of the model man, according to Buddha. Shila, Samadhi, Panya. Shila, if you practice right morality, not to kill, not to steal, and not to lie, and that way you can maintain a lot of harmony, lot of welfare for others also and for yourself also. And Samadhi again, and then Panya, then developing the purity of the mind, developing the wisdom of how to purify the mind, going deeply into understanding the mind-body phenomena, the wisdom of mind-body, the nature of mind and body, to know the nature of the mind and body, and developing concentration, samadhi. That is also an integral part of a model man. Sila, samadhi, panya. They are the three steps that all model man, whether he is a layperson or whether he is a renunciate, should follow in, say, in the path of Buddha. That means that mind-centeredness is the key to become a model man in the path of Buddha. Because as I was telling you, if that is your path, then automatically you establish this universal harmony or the good for me or good for others, and this art of giving and giving up, and thereby teaching or imbibing this quality of selflessness among the society, it automatically happens. That is the approach of Buddha. That is the definition of Buddha about this model man. So in that way, who reflects the rise and fall, who reflects everything is changing by observing, by concentrating the mind. So he is actually a model man. He is actually a true renunciate. The same way with a Brahmana also, or a person who has to be a model man among the householders also. What Buddha says, he should have some idea about the unmade, the Nibbana. A householder also should have some idea about the Nibbana and how to enter into the path of Nibbana. Then he is a true model man. And then he should have an insight into concentration and panya. Panya and samadhi. Even a householder, please understand this. That means Buddha's emphasis to become a model man is to work on one's own mind in this three-step process, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Or if he is like very, very inferior householder, then at least he should practice this Dana, Shila, Bhavana. Art of giving and giving up, that is Dana. And in the case of Bodhisattvas, though most of the times he was a householder, Bodhisattva, it goes to a higher level of Dana, Shila, and Bhavan, mind cultivation, mind purification, practicing Shila, practicing Dana. And again, practicing Dana and Shila. Again, this art of giving and giving up for the sake of others is not just for the sake of others, it is for one's own mind's purification. And that way of, say, inspiring the people around, not only I'm sacrificing for your welfare, I'm sacrificing these things for my own mind purification, and that knowledge of, say, sacrificing anything for one's own mind purification, that knowledge also you should get. So that is the message that Buddha wants to impart among his audience, among his followers, among, of course, the mankind. Like you sacrifice, you give up, you practice Shila, generate good for me, good for others, generate higher levels of sacrifice and all, not just for the sake of universal welfare, not just for the sake of other people, even to induce other people. So all these kind of self-sacrifice, service, giving, dana, generosity, or developing other perfections like aditana, like unresolved determination to fulfill your task, whatever task you have taken up. to develop higher abilities of higher levels of patience, to develop higher levels of truthfulness. All these things you are developing, you are performing, and you are developing different actions to say fulfill these so-called perfections for me, not just for the sake of other people, not to show that how great you are in sacrificing. No, that is again actually that is one more problem with the wrong view approach of helping the world or to become a model man in the world. Not to show off yourself as a great sacrificer. No, that will not lead to your mind purification, and it may bring back a lot of other defilements to your mind, and you may suffer more, and you may harm more also other people. You may harm other people also. It's all because of to purify my mind, and that very knowledge that you want to imbibe to other people also. That mind purification again is the main reason for all these kinds of sacrifices, all these kinds of for me these perfection fulfillments. So that message one should give, then only he is a model man according to Buddha. And those who live according to the teachings of Buddha, the householders, the perfect householders, or the perfect monks, this is the message they gave to their followers, to their disciples, to the whether they are again householders or monks. So, what is the message? Like work on your own mind. So whatever sacrifices I am doing, whatever sacrifices that you are going to do, if you want to really become a model man, don't give up this core aspiration, core view, that is the mind-centered view, the mind purification view, that you don't give up. Then you will stick on to this right view, then you don't fall into the trap of these extreme views like this God-centered views or the universal welfare-centered views. Universal welfare is a must. It is actually very important stepping stone to achieve mind-centeredness, to achieve mind purity. But it should not end there, and it should not be the only focus. The focus should be, the aim should be, the goal should be in universal consciousness, in universal oneness, in universal love, in universal welfare. It's a stepping stone to my mind purification. That's why I am practicing universal welfare. So that knowledge, that wisdom also should be there. That is the point. That is the key difference. That I find is very, 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 very important difference. That one should always strike into, one should always look into, one should always catch hold of. If that point is missed, then definitely one will fall into the extreme views of, this leftist views of only materialistic views, earning wealth, distributing wealth, making people physically or materialistically happy. Then if it becomes the only soul and only sole purpose, then you fall into lots of suffering, definitely, because the body-centeredness will not give you the true happiness at all. The same way, the soul-centeredness or completely relying on the concepts like universal love, universal consciousness, or universal oneness, and we can call it as God, and you become one with the God. So completely surrendered to this concept of universal love, keep sacrificing. That kind of blind love also will make you to get into the trap of wrong views, and because of that you can start imbibing a lot of defilements, lot of ignorance, lot of ego, lot of because of that again, lot of hatred, lot of jealousy also it will start imbibing, and completely that will also lead to this kind of problems like terrorism, extremism. Forget about that kind of extreme problems. Even the mind gets completely confused, like in the case of Arjuna, to do this or not to do this. Because as Buddha says, each individual is unique. Each individual has his own consciousness. There's nothing like universal consciousness. One has to avidya pachaya sankara, sankara pachaya vijnana. From ignorance only this consciousness comes. From ignorance only other defilements like your greed, hatred, jealousy, everything comes. From those defilements only consciousness comes. There's nothing like one pure consciousness. There's nothing like one universal consciousness. More and more consciousness you develop through meditativeness, the defilements will reduce, that's all. But the reason is defilement only for the consciousness also. That is what is the beautiful this paticca samuppada, this dependent origination. That's why working on ignorance, working on defilement is the key to purify the consciousness, to perfect the consciousness, to develop the consciousness, then to constant the consciousness also. When you completely annihilate ignorance and your defilements of the mind. So because of that reason, to work on ignorance, work on defilements, which are very, very much there in your mind only. That's why be mind-centered. That's what is the teaching of Buddha. Not having these imaginary ideas like universal consciousness, which of course some masters they develop, they call it as some promoters of their own religious ideas, like they call it as God, or they call it as Krishna consciousness, they call it as the Supreme Soul, or whatever they may give the different names. But that oneness, there's nothing like oneness in the consciousness. So working on one's own mind is the goal, working on one's own mind is the path. And you can design your actions like right actions, right speech, right say professions, right livelihood, all these things, which will definitely help you to understand the mind, to understand what is right, what is wrong, to understand what are the friends, what are the enemies of your mind. So when you fall into this right view path, then this right speech, right actions, right livelihood, all these things will fall in place, which will again help you to understand your own mind. And again, it will make you to become mind-centered. And then working on the mind becomes more and more easy. In that way, not to bring in these eternalistic views of universal consciousness or Krishna consciousness or universal oneness, or not falling into these materialistic views, which are the nihilistic views, or simply there is happiness, pleasure only in the bodily senses, the bodily welfare. That kind of very cheap views, not to fall into these extreme views. Designing and developing your actions, speech, professions, livelihood, everything, to make the mind more subtle, more refined, more pure, and more, developing more insights about one's own mind, so that you can keep your mind at that sthita pragnata equanimity, and thereby deriving the true happiness from within as a result of the mind purification, and having this absolute liberation of the mind through absolute purification of the mind as the goal, as the aim, and taking this right view approach or the mind-centered approach as the path. Then if you have caught this right goal and right path, then you are the model man. So that will definitely help all the people around you, all the creatures, and it will definitely create greater harmony for yourself and also for the people around you, and greater wisdom. So either you or the people around you, they will not fall into the wrong traps or wrong views. If you have this mind-centered view, that is the Buddha's approach or Buddha's concept of a model man. Okay, I think this much is enough. Of course, this is quite interesting. We can discuss about the different views, different concepts about this model man from different philosophies, different religions, but it's all not necessary. When you understand the core difference, then going through all those things is not necessary. But still, to appeal to different temperaments, different people, then this kind of discussions also sometimes it will be of some use. So, with that idea, I thought of bringing in this. So now we'll conclude with one small chanting. नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वबुद्धानुभावेन सर्वधर्मानुभावेन सर्वसङ्घानुभावेन सदा सोत्ती भवन्तु ते सुखी भवेयं निधुको अहं मिच्छा अहं विया इदा च मे सुखी होन्तु मज्जता चतवेदिनो इमां हि गम्मन्ते धम्मे तत्का होन्तु सुखी सदा ततो परञ्चारज्येषु चक्रवालेषु जन्तनो सुखी होन्तु मंगल को. May all of you be happy, healthy and peaceful. May all of you progress in this mind-centered right view. May all of you work on developing the right tools to purify your mind, to derive the true happiness from within, from your own mind. Also, may all beings happy, healthy and peaceful. Sukhi Hantu, Mangal.